What is up, YouTube? This is Brandon at the Movies here, bringing you guys a movie review. Today I'm reviewing Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. This is a 2023 release. It just came out this February. It is written and directed by Reese Frank Waterfield, and it's produced by Scott Jeffrey. This is a project that came out of kind of nowhere towards the back end of 2022, or towards the middle of 2022 or something like that. The news broke about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey because the book rights, it went public domain, at least, especially with the 1926 book. I believe it's the 1926 book. There was obviously things they couldn't use in the first film, especially Tigger, and Pooh sticks. I know, but if you've seen said photos of or releases from Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. They were able to use one of those things. So this was something I wasn't sure how I was excited for, to be honest, because I mean, look, the expectations of movies like this with this kind of gimmick for a movie is just, it's not going to end well, because you get a lot of these creature feature beef things that they have this concept, and it just doesn't, they don't give you enough. They just give you the concept and a little bit of like the carnage, but then it's everything else doesn't look right. It feels really cheap, which understandably with this kind of budget, yeah, with this kind of concept, it's usually tends to be it's going to be a low budget. But what I was impressed with this team visually, in where they shot it, looked really good. I think for the most part, I don't think I had any issues whatsoever. The atmosphere of the film, I think the only thing you can have an issue in terms of the look or the gore is the CGI elements. But even then, it's like, okay, with something with $20,000 to work with, you have to put it in, and you have to shoot this in 10 days. It's a lot to ask, and obviously there's also I don't think the expectations were high. Obviously, I think people were. What makes this interesting is because people were curious. I think that's one of the things they were selling this. But I think just listening to these guys talk and stuff, they did care about it. You know, obviously because Scott Jeffrey, who's a producer, has done other things. They've done other things that are like not as pulverizing or just like out there, like that you would straight up really know. But with this title, I think it was different, and they were like, okay, so let me get into the positives of this. Again, so the first thing is visually, this movie looks really good for a $20,000 film that, you know, is based on a concept of Winnie the Pooh becoming a killer, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet becoming feral beasts after Christopher Robin abandoned them to become a doctor. That was the concept. That's the hook, and I think it's a decent hook. But the way where it's shot, especially the wood settings, even in the house, it's like when it's outside, especially, it looks really good, and it has an atmosphere that I do really like, and it's an easy. And again, when you're working on a low budget, you want those easy aspects where you're not shooting on a sound stage or anything like that. You don't want it to look fake. It felt all real and stuff like that. The look of Winnie the Pooh, I actually really liked. I liked the performance of Craig. It was Craig David Downset. I think he does a really good job of bringing a presence to the role, even under a mask that a lot of people obviously look as Spirit Halloween type, which I can understand, but to me it worked a lot better than I thought it would, because it does have this kind of weird creepiness to it, even though it's just a Spirit Halloween mask and it's Winnie the Pooh. I think it was able to ride that kind of. I think it worked in its favor to a bit. Now, from what I've seen behind the scenes for the sequel, they've improved on certain elements with the mask and certain other elements, because if you notice that these are hybrid creatures. So I think what will confuse some, I don't think anyone will be confused, but I think some people are going to assume they're human, but they're not human. It's just that budgetary wise, they couldn't probably do what they needed to make it look like they were more, beasts than humans. Creatures, beasts, or whatever, animals. So you see them having human hands. I think that was an element to where I think maybe some people notice that, or just like it takes you out because, okay, so they're hybrids, so they're human, animal, or whatever. But then obviously the masks are, again, masks. It's obvious. There's texture to what you see in the sequel from behind the scene footage and photos. So I'm glad about that they improved on that. But again, the Winnie the Pooh mask I think worked a lot better for me here than obviously than it probably should have, or really more than I think I should have liked it. But again, it worked for me enough. And then when he's like eating the honey and stuff like that, and he's like just going down on, like, chewing down on it, it's kind of creepy. Again, it's not like, this is not meant to be scary. This is a slasher movie. You're supposed to see kills, and you get a good amount of kills and some good gore, even mixed with the CGI. To be honest, look, when you're going into a B movie like this, you're going to have to. There's some things you will have to kind of, and look, this is not Terrifier level, obviously. I think this is just, and also these guys are not, where Damien Leone is actually and does the practical effects, writes and directs. So he did a lot of that stuff, whereas, Wakefield is the director, Scott Jeffrey's the producer, but they and they were able to get some like good people in there, and they said in an interview that it was really hard to get people to even sign up on the project, and then for them to be able to go and be able to make what this movie did in the theaters for the Fathom events, and just it's pretty cool that they get to make the film. From what I've heard, this is the film they wanted to truly make. From an interview that this YouTube channel did called Splattercast, they did an interview, and they said, not during the interview, but they said that this was something that this is what they wanted to make ultimately, but they had to make a first one. So I really am I give it up to them for be able to create something, and then to be able to do something that they truly want. So atmosphere, I think, is effective enough. Like the way it's lit, the cinematography, I think is really good. They got a really good DP in Vince Knight for this. They got a lot of decent amount of people who worked on other things that are much bigger than this, which is really impressive for a movie like this. I mean, it's a concept that I think people were just apparently really curious about. I like the ending. I think is a really good ending. I think it ends in a very interesting way, and then how it's going to, how the sequel is going to be, it's going to even be more interesting because you have other things. There's been recastings and stuff that supposedly it's supposed to fit the story. So it's really interesting there. So negatives, or the mix of negatives. I think the biggest probably downside to this film is the character development is not really there. And look, that's I'm not gonna be biased here because I own the movie and I own a shirt, but that doesn't make I'm not gonna be biased towards. That is a flaw. That is a flaw in this movie. It is not. It's not. The characters are just not interesting outside of Winnie the Pooh himself and maybe Christopher Robin and the main actress, the main your main protagonist girl. Outside of those three, no one else is really that particularly interesting. You got the Instagram girl and the pool, which is, I mean, I know that's sex sells kind of thing, so I get what that was going for. But character wise, and then the story that it develops, because Christopher Robin's not in here very much. he's here and there. He's not the main focus, which you think he would be, considering that's who they want the revenge on. But they, bring this storyline in with this girl who went through, decides to go up to the mountain, the 100-acre woods to get away, after she saw her psychologist, and after some guy tried to break into her house and take her clothes off. So it's kind of interesting, it's weird that how that kind of story is in here, or like they're trying to add this into a movie they're trying to sell Winnie the Pooh being a serial killer, being killing people. So it's a very, and I think I get the idea is that they had to come up with the story, and I think Wakefield had to write this within a week, because before he was saying that there was another script, but he had to rewrite it because there were so many issues, things that they could get sued for if they put him into a movie. So I think he rewrote that in a week, and that's the story we got. And I think ultimately that's kind of when you're rushed to get into production, when you write something that fast and it doesn't, so the development gets rushed and you don't get enough of that. And I don't know if even more time would have helped. I'm pretty sure it would have, but I just don't think any of these characters were particularly interesting in that way. So that's the downside. I think you have to, and I'm pretty sure there are fans out there who like these characters, or at least like a few of these characters, and that's cool. But I acknowledge, and I see that a lot of them are not that interesting. Mostly of them are all cannon fodder, and I think that's why I do I like how it ends. It's pretty, and I can see where it's a bit mean spirited in terms of the kills, but I think that's where you have to go with if you're going to go with slasher, a horror way. I think they wanted to be it being kind of comedy, or like it being funny, but also it has to be kind of serious. And in a way, the seriousness, it's even more ridiculous because this is Winnie the Pooh. Even though it's a guy in a costume, it's still kind of can go both ways. But I think they really they did try to take it seriously, and I do appreciate that. I'd rather have someone taking it serious than not. Because when you take something really cheesy that's already should be cheesy, or like really ridiculous, it's going to make it even much more. And it's just like, that's why I really appreciate the way it's shot and lit, because I feel like it gives this atmosphere and this really intensity to it that maybe not a lot of people saw. Maybe people did see this, but just it didn't work for them, or obviously a lot of people do want story in their movies, and the story here is kind of, you have two stories with Christopher Robin, but it's like I said, he's not in the movie that so much. He's here and there, and then you have this other storyline that just really is meant to be a cannon fodder piece, and especially with the main character, ultimately her fate is, I won't spoil it, but her fate is, does it end up mattering? Just gotta watch and see. But yeah, that's the biggest thing about this movie, that it's the character development for sure, and probably the writing as well. But I don't think the writing is as terrible as some people have made it out to be. Again, it's the development of these characters, and some of the characters, the decision making, especially Christopher Robin, in the beginning, and just like, man, you're not, like, the actor is trying here, but I mean the character himself is just kind of not likable. Like he just, it's a bit frustrating. You're just like, dude, you got to try to do something. You're just whining and getting upset, and I know what they're going for with that character, but the character is just, and he's someone that you're supposed to root for here. Ultimately, you pretty much root for the killers in this movie, which is an interesting take. Which, I mean, it's always interesting when you root for the killers, even though sometimes you don't really root for the killers, but ultimately do, because the killers tend to be the most interesting. of slasher films. So, and then Piglet, I think he was that kid, the way his mask. I know this is the mask. I didn't care for the Piglet mask. I don't like the look, and I didn't. And it felt like it was noticeable that you could tell it's a mask, whereas Pooh's is like tucked in, and it's kind of like you can't tell there's a neck there, so you can't tell if it's it's a mask. But with the Piglet, and this might be just because of the the actor's body, just and how that mask is shaped around, and they didn't have anything covering like up here. It just kind of felt like, even though there's a couple scenes where they have the mask where he oinks and whatnot, which is kind of effective enough. But again, I just didn't like the look of Piglet. It didn't feel like Piglet. But they're bringing back Piglet again. They recast the actor, and then they have a new look to Piglet, which has much more of a pink tone to the face, which definitely feels more like Piglet in my opinion. So ultimately, in the end, is Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey a good film? I think it's entertaining. I think it's an entertaining film. I think it has some good kills. I think it's fun. Is it a good movie? I think just ultimately you have to know what your taste is. Again, I considered it good enough. I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece. I'm not going to say, it's the best thing I've ever seen. It is a B movie, but that's what I go into something like this, and for them to my expectations being a little bit higher than it came out a little bit, I was like, oh, I did that. And the other positive is the animation, the opening sequence was really cool. Totally different, and I think that's also a budgetary reason why they chose to do that, because to do what they did, that opening sequence was really cool, and it gives you a tone of what this is going to be, and kind of gross in a way when you think about it. It's kind of whoa, but yeah. So ultimately, this is not for everyone. For one, no, a lot of people won't. You're not gonna really take this serious. If you take it serious, then it's just like, yeah, you don't know what you're walking into. And I just think ultimately the story and the characters are what's going to really impact people's thinking. And getting back to that ultimately it's a Winnie the Pooh slasher movie that, yeah, that's what it is. And yeah, so like I said, I enjoyed it enough. I own the Blu-ray. I just got the 4K, so I liked it enough. I enjoyed them, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's a masterpiece. I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Is it great? No. Is it? I think it's good enough for what it set out to be. I think it's good enough. I think it's a B movie. That's what this is, and that's all I can ask for it. And they put the effort in. I think they did a good job with considering the time, the budget to go into making this. I think they did a good job. I would recommend it to people who do like B movies, or who are open-minded to B movies and just like B movies in general. But this won't be for everyone. I can't recommend it to anyone who doesn't like concepts like this. So I do give it a 3.5 out of 5 in my opinion. But that's just me. I'm not, again, that's just how by entertaining standards, and as a slasher, there's been so many, like, there's slashers that I have not liked that are just boring. So this is, for this to be better than some of these other slashers that I've seen before that just missed the mark, yeah, that's kind of saying something. So what did you guys think of Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey? Did you guys like it? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Let me know in the comments down below. This is Brandon the Movies, signing off. Peace.